Captain Taeho Kim stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship moved silently through space at faster than light speed toward the outer edge of the Kepler system. Taeho had been exploring space for 15 years and had seen many strange things, but nothing like what his sensors were showing him today. The year was 2387, and humanity had spread across 12 star systems in just over 2 centuries since they first left Earth. Their ships were fast, and their technology was growing stronger every day. On Earth, the government worked hard to make contact with other intelligent life forms that might exist somewhere among the billions of stars in the galaxy. Dr. Hye-Jin Park walked onto the bridge carrying a datapad filled with the latest readings from their long-range sensors. She was the lead scientist for xenobiology research and had spent her whole career looking for signs of alien life. Her dark eyes showed excitement as she approached Taeho at his command station. "The energy signatures are getting stronger, Captain," she said while pointing at the data on her pad. "These readings are unlike anything we have seen before, and they seem to be artificial in nature rather than natural phenomena from stars or planets." Taeho looked at the data and frowned as he tried to understand what they were seeing. The energy patterns showed clear signs of advanced technology, but there was something else about them that made him feel uneasy. The signals appeared to be watching them rather than simply existing in space. Back on Earth, Chancellor Du-Young Lee sat in his office in the capital city of New Geneva and reviewed the weekly reports from exploration fleets across human space. For over 100 years, Earth had been sending peaceful messages into deep space, hoping to make contact with other civilizations, but they had never received any replies. The Chancellor was a patient man who believed that somewhere among the stars there must be other intelligent beings who would welcome humanity into a larger galactic community. He had dedicated his political career to preparing Earth for the day when that first contact would finally happen. What Chancellor Lee did not know was that humanity was already being watched very carefully by a vast organization called the Galactic Council. This council was made up of 847 different intelligent species from across the galaxy, and they had been observing human development for over 200 years. The council operated under something called the Ascension Protocol, which was a set of rules about how new species could join their galactic civilization. Any species that wanted to become a member had to demonstrate specific levels of technological advancement and social development before they would receive an invitation. The problem was that humans had already exceeded these requirements by more than 300%, but no invitation had been sent to Earth. The reason for this delay was politics and fear rather than any failure on humanity's part. Prime Minister Veltar of the Vorthak hegemony was one of the most powerful leaders in the Galactic Council, and he had been working for years to prevent humanity from joining their organization. The Vorthak were a proud species who had controlled significant portions of council policy for centuries, and they saw human advancement as a direct threat to their influence. During a closed session of the council leadership, Veltar presented his case against human membership to the assembled representatives. He stood before the great circular chamber and spoke in the ancient formal language that all council members understood. The humans advanced too quickly, he said, while displaying holographic images of human colonies and ships. Their expansion across multiple star systems shows aggressive tendencies that could destabilize our peaceful galaxy. Furthermore, their evolutionary patterns are unstable and unpredictable compared to more mature civilizations. Many council members nodded in agreement as they watched the displays showing human cities and space stations growing at rapid rates. Across multiple worlds, the images made human expansion look chaotic and threatening rather than the organized colonization efforts that they actually were. Supreme Counselor Zethmos listened to the debate from his position at the center of the chamber. He was an ancient being whose species had been among the first to join the council thousands of years ago. His long experience had taught him to be cautious about making quick decisions regarding new species. The evidence shows that humans have met all technical requirements for membership, Zethmos said in his deep voice that carried across the chamber. Their scientific achievements and social development exceed our minimum standards by significant margins. But Prime Minister Veltar was prepared for this response, and he activated another set of displays that showed human military exercises and defensive preparations. The images were carefully selected to make human activities appear as aggressive as possible. Look at their weapons development and military organization, Veltar said while pointing at the displays. These beings prepare for war even as they claim to seek peaceful contact. Their psychology reports show emotional instability and violent tendencies that would make them dangerous members of our council. The debate continued for many hours, as representatives from different species argued about whether humanity should be invited to join the galactic community. Some species supported human membership based on their impressive technological achievements, while others worried about the potential risks of adding such a rapidly advancing civilization to their stable organization. When the final vote was taken, the decision to exclude humanity from council membership passed by only a narrow margin. The vote was influenced more by fear and political manipulation than by any real assessment of human character or capabilities. Meanwhile, back on the horizon's edge, Captain Tejo ordered his ship to approach the location where their sensors had detected the strange energy signatures. As they moved closer, the readings became even stronger and more complex, suggesting the presence of technology far more advanced than anything humans had developed. Dr. Hyejin Park worked frantically at her science station trying to analyze the data they were collecting. The energy patterns showed clear signs of intelligent design and seemed to be part of some kind of monitoring or observation system that was focused on their ship. "Captain, there is definitely something out there," she said while studying the sensor displays. "The energy signatures suggest a large artificial structure, but our visual sensors show nothing but empty space in that location." Tejo ordered the ship to stop at what appeared to be the source of the energy readings. They hung motionless in space while their sensors showed massive technological activity all around them, but their eyes saw only stars and darkness. Unknown to the human crew, a massive Galactic Council monitoring station was positioned exactly where their sensors indicated. The station was protected by advanced cloaking technology that made it completely invisible to human detection systems, but the energy required to maintain the cloaking field was what their sensors were actually detecting. Inside the monitoring station, Council observers watched the human ship with great interest and growing concern. They had been tracking the horizon's edge for several days and had been impressed by the advanced sensors that were somehow able to detect their presence despite the cloaking field. The station commander was a being called Quindar, who belonged to a species known for their scientific expertise and careful observation skills. She had been studying human development for over 50 years and had always been impressed by their rapid technological advancement and innovative problem-solving abilities. Commander Quindar realized that the human ship's sensors were much more advanced than Council intelligence reports had indicated. The fact that they could detect the monitoring station's energy signature meant that human technology was developing even faster than anyone had expected. She made the difficult decision to order an immediate withdrawal from the area before the humans could gather more detailed information about Council technology. The massive station powered up its engines and jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving no trace of its presence except for the fading energy signatures that the human sensors had detected. Captain Tejo watched in frustration as the energy readings suddenly disappeared from his sensors, leaving only empty space where moments before there had been clear signs of advanced alien technology. He knew that they had been close to making first contact with an alien civilization, but whatever had been watching them was now gone. The missed opportunity would have consequences that neither the human crew nor the Council observers could imagine at the time. 5 years had passed since Captain Tejo Kim encountered the mysterious energy signatures at the edge of the Kepler system, and humanity continued to expand across the galaxy at an impressive rate. The human colonies now controlled 31 star systems, and their technology had advanced far beyond what anyone had thought possible just a few years earlier. Engineer Jin Woo Choi worked in his laboratory on Mars, developing what he called quantum fold technology that would allow ships to travel much faster than the current, faster than light drives. His breakthrough discoveries were based on understanding how space itself could be folded and compressed to create shortcuts across vast distances between stars. The quantum fold drive was revolutionary because it did not require the massive amounts of energy that traditional faster-than-light travel needed. Instead, it used precise mathematical calculations to find natural weak points in space-time where the fabric of reality was thinner and easier to manipulate. Admiral Mi Young Song commanded the growing Terran Defense Fleet from her flagship stationed near Earth. The fleet had grown from a few dozen ships to over 300 vessels designed to protect human colonies from any potential threats that might exist in the galaxy. Admiral Song was a careful military leader who understood that humanity's rapid expansion might eventually bring them into contact with hostile alien civilizations. She spent her time planning defensive strategies and training her crews to handle any situation they might encounter in unknown space. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, scientist Kyung-Soo Nam was working on projects that pushed the boundaries of what anyone thought was possible. His team had made breakthrough discoveries in consciousness transfer technology and artificial intelligence integration that could revolutionize how humans interacted with their machines. The consciousness transfer research allowed human minds to be temporarily linked with computer systems, creating a direct interface between biological thought and artificial processing power. This technology made human operators much more effective at controlling complex spacecraft and analyzing large amounts of data. What none of these brilliant human scientists knew was that their rapid advancement was causing serious problems for the Galactic Council. While humanity developed new technologies and expanded across more star systems, the Council was facing the greatest crisis in their long history. The crisis was called the Nethys Invasion, and it threatened to destroy everything the Council had built over thousands of years of peaceful cooperation. The Nethys were beings from another dimension who had found ways to break through into normal space and attack the civilizations they found there. The Nethys used technology that operated on principles completely different from anything the Council species had ever encountered. Their ships could appear and disappear without warning, and their weapons could damage matter at the quantum level, making conventional defenses completely useless. Supreme Counselor Zethmos stood in the Great Council chamber and reviewed the latest reports from the battle zones where Nethys forces were attacking Council worlds. The news was terrible, and getting worse with each passing day as more planets fell to the interdimensional invaders. The Council's combined fleets had suffered devastating losses in every major engagement with the Nethys forces. Their greatest military minds could not understand how the enemy technology worked, and their most advanced weapons had no effect on the strange ships that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. The first major battle had taken place near the Rigel system, where a Council fleet of over 2,000 ships had encountered a much smaller Nethys force. The Council commanders expected an easy victory, but within hours their entire fleet had been destroyed while the enemy ships remained completely undamaged. Similar disasters had occurred at dozens of other locations across Council space as the Nethys invasion spread from the galactic core outward toward the rim worlds where most Council civilizations had their major colonies. Entire star systems were being evacuated as the Council military proved unable to stop the advance. Supreme Counselor Zethmos realized that the Council needed new ideas and different approaches to combat the Nethys threat, but their traditional military thinking was not working against an enemy that operated by completely different rules. He began to review classified reports about various species that had been studied but not yet invited to join the Council. One set of reports caught his attention immediately because they described a species whose technology seemed to operate on some of the same unusual principles that the Nethys were using. The species was humanity, and their rapid development had included innovations in quantum mechanics and dimensional physics that other Council races had never explored. Dr. Hai-Jin Park continued her research into quantum anomalies at the edge of human space, not knowing that her work was directly related to the greatest crisis facing galactic civilization. Her team had detected strange ripples in space-time that seemed to indicate the existence of other dimensions beyond normal space. The quantum anomalies appeared to be naturally occurring weak points, where the barrier between different dimensions was thinner than normal. Dr. Park's research had shown that these weak points could potentially be used to travel between dimensions or to access forms of energy that did not exist in normal space. Her colleague physicist Bo Ram Yoon had developed mathematical models that described how the dimensional barriers worked, and had even created small-scale experiments that could temporarily open tiny holes between dimensions. Neither scientist realized that they were studying the same phenomenon that the Nethys used to travel between their home dimension and normal space. The research team had also discovered that certain types of electromagnetic fields could be used to strengthen the dimensional barriers and make it much more difficult for interdimensional travel to occur. This discovery had led them to develop experimental shielding technology that could protect ships and space stations from dimensional intrusion. Meanwhile, the Nethys invasion continued to spread across Council space, leaving destroyed civilizations and dead worlds in its wake. The interdimensional invaders seemed to be searching for something specific as they moved through the galaxy, but no Council intelligence service could determine what their ultimate goal might be. A Council fleet limped through space near the border of human territory after suffering another devastating defeat at the hands of Nethys forces. The surviving ships were badly damaged, and many crew members were wounded or dying from exposure to the strange weapons that the enemy used. The fleet commander, Admiral Kurthanos, had lost over 80% of his ships in the latest battle, and his remaining vessels were running low on supplies and medical equipment. His sensors detected human ships in the nearby star system, but Council protocols prevented him from making contact with the species that had been excluded from membership. Captain Eugene Lee commanded a human patrol ship that detected the damaged Council vessels as they passed through the outer edges of human space. Her crew could see that the alien ships were in serious trouble and that many beings aboard them would die without immediate assistance. Captain Lee ordered her communications officer to broadcast messages offering humanitarian aid to the damaged ships, but the Council fleet did not respond to any of their transmissions. The alien vessels continued on their course toward Council space, even though it was clear they might not survive the journey. The human crew watched in frustration as the Council ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, knowing that they had been unable to help beings who were clearly in desperate need of assistance. Captain Lee filed a report about the encounter that eventually reached Admiral Song and other senior human leaders. Back on Earth, Chancellor Du Young Lee had been replaced by President Sujin Bayek, who continued the policy of sending peaceful messages into space while preparing humanity for eventual contact with alien civilizations. The government was aware that something major was happening in the galaxy based on the strange energy readings their deep space sensors were detecting. The readings showed massive explosions and energy discharges from directions where no human colonies existed, suggesting that some kind of large-scale conflict was taking place among alien civilizations. President Bayek ordered increased military readiness while continuing to offer peaceful contact to any alien species that might be willing to communicate. Dr. Kyung-Soo Nam's research into consciousness transfer and artificial intelligence had produced an unexpected side effect that would prove to be extremely important in the coming crisis. His experiments had shown that human consciousness seemed to be naturally resistant to certain types of external mental influence that could affect other Earth species. The resistance appeared to be related to the chaotic and unpredictable nature of human thought patterns, which made it very difficult for outside forces to predict or control human mental processes. This natural protection was something that Dr. Nam had noted in his research, but had not considered to be particularly significant. What he did not know was that the Nethys relied heavily on psychic attacks and mental manipulation to defeat their enemies. The interdimensional invaders used advanced forms of telepathic warfare that could drive most intelligent beings insane or turn them against their own allies during battle. Captain Tae-ho Kim was leading a deep space patrol mission near the edge of human territory when his sensors detected something that changed everything. The patrol consisted of 3 ships, including his command vessel, and 2 escort frigates, crewed by some of humanity's best space officers. Tactical Officer Sujin Kang was monitoring the long-range sensors when she detected energy signatures that matched the mysterious readings they had encountered 5 years earlier near the Kepler system. The signatures were much stronger this time and seemed to indicate some kind of battle taking place just beyond the range of their visual sensors. Captain, we are detecting massive energy discharges approximately 2 light hours ahead of our current position, Sujin reported, while studying the complex patterns on her displays. The energy signatures suggest advanced weapons fire and possible ship explosions. Communications specialist Woo Jin Lim was scanning all frequencies, trying to pick up any transmissions from the area where the battle appeared to be taking place. Most of the signals were in languages and formats that human technology could not understand, but the urgency and panic in the transmissions was clear even without translation. Captain Tae-ho ordered his small fleet to investigate the situation at maximum speed while maintaining full defensive readiness. As they approached the battle zone, their sensors began to show details of what was happening in the space ahead of them. A large space station was under attack by ships that seemed to flicker in and out of normal space, like they were partially existing in another dimension. The attacking vessels used weapons that created tears in space itself, causing devastating damage to the station's hull and defensive systems. The space station appeared to belong to an advanced alien civilization and was clearly a research facility based on the scientific equipment that their sensors could detect. The station's defensive weapons were having no effect on the attacking ships, which continued their assault without any apparent concern for the return fire. Captain Tejo realized that they were witnessing humanity's first encounter with an active alien conflict and that innocent beings were dying while his ships had the power to intervene. He made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. All ships prepare for combat, he ordered while his crew rushed to battle stations. We are going to assist the space station against those attacking vessels. Target the enemy ships and prepare to fire quantum torpedoes on my command. The human ships accelerated toward the battle zone at maximum speed while their crews prepared the experimental weapons that had been developed for defending human colonies. The quantum torpedoes used technology based on Dr. Jinwoo Choi's research into dimensional physics and were designed to disrupt space-time itself. When the human ships entered weapons range, Captain Tejo ordered his fleet to open fire on the mysterious attacking vessels. The quantum torpedoes struck the enemy ships and created spectacular explosions that seemed to tear holes in the fabric of space around the impact points. The attacking ships, which had been completely immune to the space station's weapons, suddenly found themselves taking serious damage from the human weapons. The interdimensional vessels tried to retreat into their alternate dimension, but the quantum torpedo explosions had disrupted the dimensional barriers, making escape impossible. Within minutes, the human fleet had destroyed or driven off all of the attacking ships, leaving the badly damaged space station floating alone in space. Captain Tejo ordered his ships to approach the station carefully while scanning for survivors and assessing the damage. The space station's hull had been breached in dozens of places, and many sections were completely destroyed, but their sensors indicated that there were still living beings aboard the facility. Captain Tejo ordered his crew to prepare for a rescue operation while maintaining defensive readiness in case the attacking ships returned. Among the survivors rescued from the space station was a being called Quindar, who belonged to a species that served as xenobiologists for the Galactic Council. She had been studying interdimensional physics at the research station when the Nethys attack began and had witnessed the entire battle from the station's damaged control center. Quindar was shocked to discover that the beings who had rescued her were humans, the same species that the Council had been monitoring for over 200 years, but had refused to contact. She realized immediately that the human weapons had been effective against Nethys forces in ways that no Council technology had ever managed. As the human medical team treated her injuries, Quindar learned that humans possessed a natural immunity to the psychic attacks that the Nethys used to control and manipulate other intelligent species. The chaotic and unpredictable nature of human thought patterns provided protection that no other known species had ever demonstrated. Dr. Hyjin Park arrived aboard the rescue ship to examine the alien technology and interview the survivors about what had attacked them. When she spoke with Quindar, she learned for the first time about the Galactic Council and the massive interdimensional war that was destroying civilizations across the galaxy. The Nethys are beings from another dimension who have been systematically attacking and destroying Council worlds for over 2 years, Quindar explained while showing Dr. Park holographic records of the invasion. Our greatest fleets and most advanced weapons have been completely ineffective against their technology. Dr. Park studied the Nethys ship designs and weapons data that Quindar provided and realized that her research team had been unknowingly developing countermeasures against exactly this type of interdimensional threat. The quantum anomalies they had been studying were the same phenomena that the Nethys used to travel between dimensions. Back on Earth, President Su Jin-Beck convened an emergency session with her top military and scientific advisors to discuss the implications of first contact with an alien civilization. Military strategist Dong Hyun-ro and xenospecialist Yoon Seo-jung joined the meeting to help determine how humanity should respond to this unprecedented situation. The discovery that an advanced galactic civilization existed but had been ignoring human attempts at contact for decades raised serious questions about alien intentions and galactic politics. The fact that this civilization was losing a war against interdimensional invaders created both opportunities and dangers for humanity. President Bayek realized that humanity faced a crucial decision about whether to become involved in an alien war that they did not fully understand. The moral imperative to help innocent beings who were facing extinction had to be balanced against the risk of exposing human colonies to attacks from an enemy that had already proven capable of destroying advanced civilizations. Commander Jae Sung O was selected to lead a volunteer fleet that would provide assistance to Council worlds under attack by Nethys forces. The volunteer fleet consisted of ships and crews who understood that they might not return from their mission, but were willing to risk their lives to help defend alien civilizations from extinction. The human volunteer fleet included some of humanity's best pilots and most experienced space officers, including Yanwu Seo, who commanded a squadron of advanced fighters, and Haiwan Ko, who led a group of heavy cruisers equipped with the latest quantum torpedo technology. When the human volunteer fleet arrived at its first battle zone, they found a Council defense force that was being systematically destroyed by a large Nethys attack fleet. The Council ships were fighting bravely, but their weapons were having no effect on the interdimensional attackers, while their own vessels were being torn apart by enemy fire. Commander O ordered his fleet to engage the Nethys forces using the unconventional tactics that human military doctrine had developed for fighting unknown enemies. Instead of the formal battle formations that Council fleets used, the human ships spread out and attacked from multiple directions using unpredictable movement patterns. The human tactics proved devastatingly effective against the Nethys forces, who had become accustomed to fighting Council fleets that used predictable strategies and conventional weapons. The quantum torpedoes disrupted the dimensional fields that protected Nethys ships, while the chaotic human attack patterns made it impossible for the enemy to coordinate effective responses. Within hours, the human volunteer fleet had destroyed the entire Nethys attack force and saved thousands of Council lives. The surviving Council commanders were amazed by the effectiveness of human weapons and tactics against an enemy that had seemed completely invincible. News of the human victory spread quickly through Council communication networks, reaching civilizations across the galaxy that had been losing hope as Nethys forces continued their advance toward the core worlds. For the first time since the invasion, Council forces had achieved a decisive victory against the interdimensional threat. Captain Tejo received reports from the volunteer fleet about their successful engagement with Nethys forces and realized that humanity had demonstrated capabilities that the galactic community desperately needed. The question now was whether the Council would be willing to work with the species they had rejected and ignored for so many years. Quindar used her authority as a Council xenobiologist to send an emergency report to the Supreme Counselor describing the human capabilities she had witnessed and recommending immediate contact with Earth's government. The Galactic Council faced complete extinction as Nethys forces pushed deeper into their territory, destroying everything in their path. Half of the Council worlds were under siege, and their greatest military fleets had been reduced to scattered remnants hiding in remote star systems while trying to evacuate civilian populations. Supreme Counselor Zethmos stood in the damaged Council chambers on the capital world of Nexus Prime and watched holographic displays showing the latest reports from across Council space. Every update brought news of more defeats, more destroyed fleets, and more worlds falling to the interdimensional invaders. The ancient being who had led the Council for over 3 centuries realized that traditional politics and old prejudices had become meaningless in the face of total annihilation. The reports from Quindar about human capabilities against Nethys forces represented the only hope that galactic civilization might survive the crisis. Zethmos made the decision that would have been unthinkable just months earlier and ordered the immediate breaking of the centuries-old non-contact protocol regarding humanity. An official diplomatic mission would be sent to Earth to formally request military assistance from the species that the Council had rejected and ignored. Ambassador Kirithanos was selected to lead the diplomatic mission to Earth despite his personal opposition to human Council membership in previous votes. The proud being would have to swallow his species' pride and ask for help from the beings he had once described as primitive and unstable. The diplomatic ship arrived at Earth after a journey through space that was filled with dangers from Nethys patrol fleets that were now operating deep inside what had once been secure Council territory. Kirithanos had never imagined that he would one day be traveling to Earth as a supplicant begging for assistance from humans. President Sujin Bayek received the Council diplomatic mission in the main government complex in New Geneva, where humanity's leaders had dreamed for decades of the day when aliens would finally make formal contact with Earth. The irony that contact came in the form of a desperate plea for help was not lost on anyone present. Ambassador Kirthanos delivered his message to the assembled human leadership with as much dignity as he could manage, while asking for help from a species his government had deliberately excluded from galactic civilization. The formal diplomatic language could not hide the desperation behind his request for immediate military assistance. President Bayek assembled humanity's greatest minds and military leaders to discuss the Council's request and determine how Earth should respond to the galactic crisis. Admiral Mi Young-song now commanded a fleet of over 500 vessels, while Dr. Hyojin Park had successfully weaponized her dimensional technology research. General Han Sol-yu led the newly formed Human Expeditionary Force that had been created specifically for operations beyond human space. The military leadership understood that helping the Council would mean committing humanity to a war against an enemy that had already proven capable of destroying advanced civilizations. The human leadership agreed to provide assistance not because of any political advantage they might gain, but because entire civilizations were dying while Earth had the technology and capability to help. The decision reflected the humanitarian values that had guided human expansion across the galaxy. Marshal Kyung-hwan No was given command of the massive human fleet that would be sent to assist Council forces in the defense of their core worlds. The fleet included brilliant strategic minds like Captain Yejin Che and Commander Min Ho-an, who had studied the reports from earlier battles and developed new tactics specifically for fighting Nethys forces. The human intervention fleet departed Earth carrying with it the hopes of both humanity and the surviving Council civilizations. The ships were equipped with the most advanced quantum torpedo technology, and their crews had been trained in the unconventional tactics that had proven effective against interdimensional enemies. When the human fleet arrived at the galactic core, they found the Council's last major defensive line, preparing for what everyone expected to be the final battle of the war. The remaining Council fleets were positioned around the most important worlds in their civilization, but their morale was low and their commanders expected defeat. The Battle of Galactic Core began when massive Nethys assault fleets emerged from dimensional rifts throughout the star system and immediately began attacking Council defensive positions. The interdimensional ships used their usual tactics of appearing and disappearing while striking with weapons that conventional defenses could not stop. Marshal No ordered his human ships to implement the battle plan that had been developed specifically for this engagement. Instead of trying to protect fixed positions, the human fleet would use mobile tactics to disrupt Nethys operations while creating opportunities for quantum torpedo strikes against enemy dimensional technology. The human fleet moved through the battle zone like a storm wind, striking Nethys forces from unexpected directions and vanishing before the enemy could respond effectively. The quantum torpedoes created cascading failures in the dimensional fields that allowed Nethys ships to phase in and out of normal space. Captain Yejin Che led a squadron of heavy cruisers in a direct assault on the largest Nethys command ship, while Commander Min Ho-an coordinated fighter attacks against the dimensional rift generators that the enemy was using to bring reinforcements into the battle. The turning point of the battle came when Dr. Hyojin Park's dimensional research allowed human scientists to understand how the Nethys were maintaining their primary invasion route. A massive dimensional rift anchored near the galactic core was serving as the main gateway between the enemy's home dimension and normal space. Human pilot Ji-hoon Park volunteered for a suicide mission to destroy the dimensional rift anchor by flying his ship directly into the gateway while carrying a specially modified quantum torpedo that would create a permanent seal. His sacrifice would cut off the main Nethys reinforcement route and trap their invasion forces in normal space. As Ji-hoon flew his ship toward the dimensional rift, he broadcast a final message that was heard throughout the battle zone by both human and Council forces. For all sentient life, he said as his ship disappeared into the gateway and the massive explosion that followed sealed the interdimensional breach forever. The destruction of the primary invasion route marked the beginning of the end for Nethys forces in normal space. Cut off from their home dimension, and vulnerable to quantum torpedo attacks, the interdimensional invaders found themselves fighting a losing battle against the combined human and Council fleets. However, even as victory seemed possible, Prime Minister Veltar and his Vorthak hegemony attempted one final act of treachery that would stain Council history forever. While human ships sacrificed themselves to save Council worlds, Veltar secretly ordered his remaining fleet to attack the human vessels. The Vorthak commander believed that he could eliminate both the Nethys threat and the human challenge to his species' dominance by allowing the two enemies to destroy each other. His ships opened fire on human vessels that were engaged in combat with Nethys forces, creating chaos in the battle lines. The treacherous attack was broadcast across the galaxy by Council communication networks that had been monitoring the battle. Every surviving Council civilization witnessed the moment when human beings died saving alien worlds while those same aliens fired on their rescuers. The political consequences of Veltar's betrayal were immediate and devastating for the Vorthak hegemony. Council species that had remained neutral in galactic politics turned against the Vorthaks, while those who had supported human exclusion publicly denounced the attack on their saviors. Supreme Councilor Zethmos used his emergency powers to strip the Vorthak hegemony of their council membership and ordered the arrest of Veltar for crimes against galactic civilization. The ancient leader realized that the council's moral authority had been severely damaged by the betrayal of their human allies. Despite the Vorthak treachery, the combined human and council forces successfully completed the destruction of the Nethys invasion fleet. The interdimensional threat that had terrorized the galaxy for years was finally ended, but the cost had been enormous for both sides. The human sacrifice in the Battle of Galactic Core had saved countless council worlds, but had also cost humanity a generation of their best and brightest space officers. Ships that had carried human families to new worlds among the stars had been destroyed while defending alien civilizations that most humans had never known existed. As the battle ended and the surviving fleets regrouped around the liberated council worlds, the political landscape of the galaxy had been permanently changed. The species that had once excluded humanity from galactic civilization now owed their continued existence to human courage and sacrifice. The victory celebrations on council worlds were mixed with shame and regret as alien populations realized that their governments had rejected and ignored the very beings who had ultimately saved them from extinction. The empty chair that would soon be placed in the council chambers was already becoming a symbol of their greatest political failure. The Nethys invasion was over, and the galaxy slowly began to count the cost of the interdimensional war that had nearly destroyed all known civilization. Thousands of council worlds owed their continued existence to human sacrifice, but the price of victory had been measured in the lives of an entire generation of humanity's finest space officers and crew members. The great council chambers on Nexus Prime had been rebuilt after suffering damage during the final Nethys assault on the capital world. When the chambers reopened for the first post-war session of the galactic government, an ornate chair had been placed in the center of the circular meeting hall where all representatives could see it. Supreme Councilor Zethmos stood before the assembled delegates from 846 surviving council species and explained the meaning of the empty chair that would remain forever in the center of their government. The chair was carved from rare crystal and decorated with symbols representing all the worlds that humans had died to defend. This chair represents the species we rejected due to our fear and prejudice, Zethmos said in his ancient voice that carried across the silent chamber. It will remain empty as a monument to the cost of our failure to recognize true allies when they offered us friendship and cooperation. The inscription on the chair was written in over 1,000 different languages, including every known council script and the human languages of Earth. The words reserved for those who stand for others served as a permanent reminder of the civilization that had sacrificed everything to save species that had never welcomed them into galactic society. Captain Eugene Lee had inherited command of humanity's largest space fleet after her father Tai-Ho Kim died during the Battle of Galactic Core. She stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the holographic transmission from the Council. Chambers where alien leaders were debating humanity's future role in galactic civilization. The political discussions on Nexus Prime revealed the deep divisions that existed within the Council about how to respond to humanity's role in ending the Nethys crisis. Some species wanted to immediately grant humans full council membership, while others worried about the implications of accepting such a powerful and unpredictable civilization. Captain Eugene Lee received an official invitation to address the council about humanity's intentions regarding membership in galactic civilization. The invitation represented everything that previous generations of human leaders had hoped to receive, but it came too late, and under circumstances that had forever changed humanity's relationship with the galaxy. When Captain Lee arrived at the council chambers, she was escorted to a place of honor near the empty chair that had been placed in the center of the meeting hall. The symbolism was clear to everyone present as she stood beside the monument to human sacrifice while preparing to speak for all of humanity. Her speech to the assembled council representatives would be remembered as one of the most important moments in galactic political history. The young human captain spoke in clear, simple language that avoided diplomatic complexity while delivering a message that reshaped the relationship between humanity and alien civilization. "We came to your worlds not as conquerors seeking dominion or as supplicants begging for acceptance," she said, while looking directly at the representatives who had voted to exclude humanity from the council. "We came as neighbors offering help to those who needed assistance during their darkest hour." The captain continued her speech by describing how humanity had learned about galactic civilization through their rescue of council refugees and their battles against Nethys forces. She explained that humans had never sought political power or territorial expansion beyond their own colonies, but had simply responded to requests for help from dying civilizations. "Your silence during our years of peaceful contact attempts taught us that we stand alone among the stars," she said while gesturing toward the empty chair. "Your rejection showed us that advanced civilizations can choose fear over friendship and politics over principles when faced with beings who are different from themselves." Captain Lee then delivered the decision that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. After extensive consultation with Earth's government and military leadership, humanity had chosen to withdraw from galactic politics rather than seek membership in an organization that had rejected them based on prejudice and fear. "We will continue to stand alone as we have always done," she announced, while the council chamber remained completely silent. "But we will stand watching and ready to help when the galaxy faces threats that require our unique capabilities, and when civilizations need assistance that only humans can provide." The Terra Doctrine that Captain Lee announced established humanity as an independent galactic power that would assist any species facing extinction or crisis, but would refuse formal political integration with existing galactic organizations. This decision created a new category of interstellar relationship that had never existed before. Humanity's withdrawal from traditional galactic politics was not motivated by anger or resentment, but by a fundamental philosophical difference about the nature of civilization and cooperation. Humans believed that helping others should not require political membership or formal alliances, but should be based on moral principles and humanitarian values. The Terra Doctrine created a legend that spread across the galaxy as stories were told about the mysterious humans who appeared when hope was lost, fought impossible battles against overwhelming odds, and then vanished again into the void without seeking reward or recognition. Within a few years of the Nethys defeat, human ships began appearing at crisis zones throughout the galaxy, wherever civilizations faced natural disasters, war, or other existential threats. The ships would arrive without invitation, provide whatever assistance was needed, and then depart without making political demands or seeking territorial concessions. The pattern became so well known that some species began to refer to humanity as the guardian angels of the galaxy, even though humans themselves never used such dramatic language to describe their activities. The human crews who volunteered for these missions saw themselves simply as space officers doing their duty to help others. Dr. Hee-Jin Park continued her dimensional research from laboratories on the outer rim of human space, where her work contributed to new technologies that made interstellar travel safer and more efficient. Her discoveries were shared freely with any civilization that requested the information regardless of their political relationship with Earth. Admiral Mi Young Song established training programs that taught other species how to use quantum torpedo technology and unconventional tactics for defending against interdimensional threats. The training was provided without cost to any civilization that faced similar dangers to the Nethys invasion. The empty chair in the council chambers became a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy who wanted to honor the humans who had died saving their worlds. Representatives would place flowers or other memorial offerings beside the chair, while reflecting on the cost of prejudice and the value of sacrifice. Supreme Counselor Zethmos often stood alone in the chamber late at night looking at the empty chair and wondering what galactic civilization might have become if the Council had welcomed humanity instead of rejecting them. The regret he felt was shared by many other Council leaders who realized they had lost the opportunity to work with humanity as true partners. The story reached its conclusion years later when a young civilization achieved faster than light travel and began sending their first tentative signals into deep space, hoping to make contact with other intelligent life forms. Their messages traveled across the galaxy seeking any response that would tell them they were not alone among the stars. The new species received no immediate answer from the Galactic Council, which had reverted to its traditional caution about contacting unknown civilizations. The bureaucratic processes that governed first contact protocols meant that months or years might pass before any Council species would be authorized to respond to the signals. However, within days of detecting the new civilization's transmissions, a human exploration ship appeared at the edge of their star system, broadcasting a simple message in mathematical language that any technological species could understand. The message was brief, but carried profound meaning for beings who had wondered if intelligence existed elsewhere in the universe. "You are not alone," the human transmission said, while the ship maintained a respectful distance from the alien homeworld. "When you are ready to join the community of worlds among the stars, we will be here to help you take your first steps into the galaxy." The encounter established the pattern that would define humanity's role in galactic civilization for centuries to come. While the Council continued to operate according to political protocols and bureaucratic procedures, humans served as the welcoming committee for new species and the emergency responders for civilizations in crisis. The empty chair remained in the center of the Council chambers, serving its purpose as a reminder of the consequences of fear and prejudice. The inscription continued to honor those who stand for others, while the chair itself represented humanity's permanent absence from the political structure they had died to defend.